Congo's Ebola emergency, the sky behind the declaration. More than 5,000 people have fallen ill, over 2,320 are dead. On August 11, 2026, the World Health Organization declared the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of the Congo a public health emergency of international concern, its highest global alert. This decision, following a WHO emergency meeting, acknowledged the outbreak as the country's deadliest and largest since the 2014 to 2016 West African epidemic. The declaration isn't a medical cure. It's a legal tool obliging WHO members to coordinate, share resources, and prevent the virus from spreading. For communities in eastern Congo, already enduring months of tragedy, the declaration was a stark recognition of their suffering and a turning point. The moment. The astrological chart for noon on August 11th in Kinshasa opens with Scorpio rising. This sign reveals what's hidden, now forced into the open. Declaring an emergency after thousands of infections fits this, a formal acknowledgement of a long-standing threat. The chart's ruling planet, Mars, sits at 0 degrees 4 minutes Cancer. Mars signifies action and conflict. Cancer represents home and protection. This suggests a defensive mobilization, where the fight against Ebola moves into households. For families in North Kivu, the battle has literally come home. The Sun at 18 degrees 49 minutes Leo sits almost exactly on the midheaven, the chart's most public point. A declaration under a Leo Sun, a sign of visibility and leadership, demands attention. While the outbreak wasn't new, the world's formal acknowledgement of it was. Barely 24 hours later, a total solar eclipse occurred at 20 degrees 2 minutes Leo, just a degree past the event's sun. Eclipses are watershed moments in astrology. This close alignment suggests the declaration marks a profound turning point, one that will unfold over months. The declaration and the eclipse are, in effect, the same event viewed through different lenses. The moon, at 1 degree 27 minutes Leo, is a waning crescent, barely illuminated. This signifies the end of an old cycle and the eve of a new one, heralded by the eclipse. The declaration arrived at the conclusion of an era where this was solely Congo's problem. Before the declaration, the moon was void of course in Cancer, meaning a pause in new initiatives. It also squared Saturn, indicating friction between public emotion and institutional limits. This void period, from 0730 UTC on August 10th to 0837 on August 11th, was a holding pattern before action. As the moon entered Leo, the declaration followed. The tightest aspect in the chart is Neptune sextile Pluto, at a mere 0.2 degrees orb, exact on July 25th. Neptune governs epidemics and hidden forces. Pluto rules deep institutional power and transformation. A sextile is an opportunity, a working connection. This describes a period where the epidemic's invisible spread and the institutional response are linked. The declaration makes this connection explicit, highlighting the gap between the virus's actions and current containment efforts. This aspect is part of a larger minor grand trine involving Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, active from April 2026 to December 2027. It indicates a channel for deep, directed change within public life, with the international response as that channel. The Barbault Cyclic Index, measuring global tension, was at 852.8 on August 11th, in the upper range but trending towards dispersal by November. This suggests the world had the bandwidth to act on the declaration. This analysis follows earlier coverage from June 19th, which correctly identified a deepening health crisis and forecast a leadership moment around August 12th. However, it underestimated the scale of the outbreak and didn't predict the WHO emergency declaration. The initial focus on security has shifted. The health crisis is now central. What it touches. The Democratic Republic of the Congo was founded on June 30th, 1960. On August 11th, transiting Neptune formed a precise quincunx to the nation's natal Pluto at 0.0 degrees orb. A quincunx signifies a forced adjustment between disparate forces. Here, Neptune, epidemics, dissolving boundaries, presses against the DRC's Pluto, deep power structures, institutional change. This describes the crisis's core, a disease exploiting structural weaknesses, demanding an unavoidable reckoning. It's not about causing illness, but about revealing the mismatch between the epidemic's reach and the state's capacity. Transiting Pluto also quincunx the DRC's natal Pluto at 0.2 degrees orb. This signifies a period of intense structural reckoning for the nation's power arrangements, with the outbreak acting as a stress test. This slow-moving transit will recur as Pluto retrogrades. The transiting Sun aligns exactly with the DRC's natal Uranus, the planet of sudden shocks and reform. On the day the world declared an emergency, the spotlight shone on the nation's vulnerabilities. The declaration didn't create this vulnerability, it merely named it. The DRC's collective vitality lens, a symbolic gauge of national resilience, reveals a dominance of Earth elements. Enduring but prone to stagnation. The least resourced element is air, indicating a lack of clear perspective. For a nation facing an epidemic requiring both endurance and agile thinking, this imbalance is a constraint. The chart also places public health, the 6th house, under Aquarius, ruled by retrograde Saturn in Aries. This means public health structures are under review, still being built and tested, not yet at full strength as the outbreak progresses. Two fixed stars add further context. The south node, representing what must be released, sits on Regulus, the royal star of leadership. This suggests past leadership approaches are being shed. The crisis demands humility that old methods cannot provide. Mars sits on Betelgeuse, a star of martial courage. This colors the response with urgency and boldness. But courage alone is not enough to contain a virus. The connection between the DRC and WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, who made the declaration, is notable. The synastry between the DRC's chart and Tedros' natal chart is dominated by Chiron, the archetype of the wounded healer. The DRC's collective path, its nodes, and public mood, its moon, connect directly to Tedros' Chiron, the place in his chart signifying vulnerability and the instinct to mend. This highlights a resonance. The nation's wound meets a decision-maker attuned to healing. Tedros' embodied energy chart describes him as a manifester, someone who acts first and informs later, with clarity emerging over time. His decision-making is emotionally driven, relying on commitment before the full picture is clear. This design suits the moment's demand for decisive action, even with incomplete data. The risk lies in anger when his initiatives are blocked by competing member state priorities. How it rolls forward. The weeks following the declaration are marked by eclipses and lunations, keeping the epidemic central for the DRC. A partial lunar eclipse on August 28th at 4 degrees, 51 minutes Pisces brings culmination and heightened emotions. Pisces, associated with dissolution and compassion, imbues this period with grief and exhaustion. Crucially, a pair of lunations cast for Kinshasa highlight the epidemic's continued dominance. The full moon on September 26th places Neptune on the ascendant at 0.01 degrees orb, meaning the epidemic effectively is the face of the nation. The new moon on October 10th repeats this, with Neptune on the ascendant at 0.41 degrees orb. 2 consecutive lunations with Neptune on the ascendant for Kinshasa mean the epidemic will define national life through September and October. This is a period where the response could falter due to the outbreak's hidden nature, mistrust, and exhaustion. On August 31st, Jupiter trine Saturn becomes exact, a significant political economic marker. This last occurred in these signs in July 1967, during moments when international institutions were severely tested. Jupiter, resources and international law, in a flowing trine with Saturn, state apparatus and long-term responsibility, describes a window for institutional capacity and resources to align. This supportive signature suggests the machinery of international response can hold. It doesn't guarantee containment, but offers a climate where alignment is possible if pursued. The Bradley Siderograph, tracking market sentiment, stands at 10.55 on the event date, trending downward to -3.05 by February 2027. A sharp peak on August 13th suggests initial optimism around the declaration. The subsequent drop by August 21st indicates a sobering realization of the epidemic's scale, affecting supply lines, vaccine deployment, and surveillance. By late autumn, sentiment tightens considerably. For a Goma family, a market trader, or a health worker, this tightening translates to resources being squeezed precisely when need is greatest. The Saturn-Neptune cycle, governing structural responses to epidemics, began on February 20th, 2026 at 0 degrees, 45 minutes Aries, only 6 months prior. This fresh cycle, less than 3% into its 36-year arc, means new frameworks are being built from scratch. While lessons from the previous cycle, 1989 onwards, encompassing HIV/AIDS, SARS, and earlier Ebola, are embedded in WHO playbooks, this new cycle demands new structures. The challenge lies in the gap between plans and execution. When supply lines break, community trust erodes, or political crises distract. Astrology describes a climate where these are more likely due to new structures and relentless pressure. What holds for containment isn't an astrological question, it depends on clinics, supply lines, and trust. Whether vaccines reach communities, contact tracing operates in conflict zones, and at-risk populations trust responders. The Jupiter-Saturn trine offers a window for alignment, while the Neptune on the ascendant lunations in September and October will test that alignment most severely. Recent history and where this is heading. This urgent declaration sits on the fault line of the Saturn conjunct Neptune transit at 0 degrees Aries, a slow-motion showdown that is eroding the rigid rules meant to keep chaos at bay. The symbolism suggests that as long as these twin planets cling to this angle, global control will struggle to maintain order, exposing the fragility of our safety nets against unseen threats. Unrelated headlines of breakdown are merely different threads pulled from the same cosmic loom. The storm tide may turn later this summer, however, as Jupiter aligns with Saturn in late August. The symbolism points to concrete steps toward stabilizing political power, followed by the Sun entering diplomatic Libra in September, hinting at a return to balance. Until then, the world must navigate the fog. Summary: the declaration of a global health emergency coincides with a total solar eclipse on the event's degree, a Neptune-Pluto sextile linking epidemic spread to institutional transformation, and a period of relative global bandwidth. However, the coming months show repeated Neptune on the ascendant signatures for Kinshasa, indicating the epidemic will define the nation through autumn. The eclipse within 24 hours of the declaration, a total solar eclipse at 20 degrees, 2 minutes Leo on August 12th, just over 1 degree from the event Sun, marks this as a turning point that will unfold over months. Neptune quincunx the DRC's natal Pluto at 0.0 degrees orb. The epidemic forces structural adjustment in the nation's deep power arrangements. This transit will return as Pluto stations through the degree. 2 consecutive lunations with Neptune on the ascendant for Kinshasa, full moon September 26th at 0.01 degrees orb, and new moon October 10th at 0.41 degrees orb, describe the epidemic remaining the defining feature of national life into late autumn. Jupiter trine Saturn exact August 31st, the supportive signature for institutional alignment between resources and structure, last in these signs during the institutional crises of July 1967. The Bradley Siderograph trending from 10.55 to negative 3.05 by February 2027, a market mood curve that tightens sharply through the autumn, describing diminishing economic tolerance precisely as the response requires the most sustained investment. The Saturn-Neptune cycle at less than 3% through its 36-year arc, the structural framework for epidemic response is being built fresh. The points where it historically frays, supply lines, community trust, political distraction, are where this effort is most exposed. A health emergency is decided by clinics, supply lines and trust, not by planets. The sky describes the climate through which that human work is carried, and the periods when the weather is most likely to turn against it. A word from the channel. I'm handing the channel over to Marcus, who will take tonight's headlines to the cards to reveal what the energy looks like when it lands on the ground. We're still building this bridge between ancient wisdom and the modern grid, so please tap the subscribe button if this grounded, practical perspective helps you navigate the day, and drop a comment in the chat telling us what you'd like us to check next.
Thank you, Simon, for that deeply illuminating chart. Let's take this story to the cards and see what they reveal about the human landscape of this emergency. 1 Democratic Republic of the Congo, Knight of Cups. The DRC isn't just a victim, it's a nation carrying a profound emotional burden, like a messenger with a chalice of suffering and hope. This knight's quiet grace, amidst conflict, speaks to the incredible resilience of its people. The cards linked to Neptune, the planet of dissolution and compassion, shows a national spirit tested by invisible tides, yet still holding space for healing and unexpected support. 2 World Health Organization, the world. The WHO appears here at its most aspirational, striving for that complete coordinated picture of global health it was built to achieve. This card speaks of a desire for a perfect circle of containment and success. Yet with Saturn retrograde, that perfection is under review. The ambition is vast, but the real-world machinery, supply chains, diplomacy is being stress-tested, revealing the gap between ideal and strained reality. 3 Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, 7 of Wands. Tedros stands in a position of defense, brandishing his staff against multiple pressures. This card captures his manifestor energy, taking a bold stand, even when outnumbered. He's managing scientific uncertainty, political scrutiny, and immense public expectation. It's a card of valor, but also of strife, reflecting the pressure of making urgent decisions from a precarious vantage point, with his authority constantly challenged. 4. DRC and WHO, 5 of Cups. The current between the nation and the institution is one of acknowledged loss and a fragile what remains. The focus for now is on the 3 spilled cups, the staggering numbers of infections and deaths, a sense of insufficient response. But the 2 upright cups behind are crucial. They are the remaining capacity for care, the international aid now mobilizing. This connection is in a tender, grieving state, needing to turn from what's lost to what can still be saved. 5. Wuho and Tedros, Queen of Wands. This is a surprisingly warm, productive channel. The Queen is the WHO's supportive, magnetic energy towards its leader, a good harvest of institutional backing for his decisive action. She's friendly, honorable, and invested in his success. This card suggests a core of strong, committed support for Tedros' leadership within the WHO, providing the fiery determination needed to see this through, especially with that shared retrograde Saturn prompting an internal review of their duties. 6. DRC and Tedros, the devil. This is the most difficult tie, pointing to a binding, oppressive dynamic rooted in inescapable material realities, The chains of historical neglect, systemic inequality, and the brutal logistics of a pandemic in a conflict zone. It's the shadow side of Tedros' chironic resonance with the DRC's wounds, a fraught connection where grand declarations risk being stifled by the devilish details of corruption, poor infrastructure, and deep-seated mistrust. This isn't about evil, but about brutal, seemingly intractable facts on the ground. 7. The heart of the web, Knight of Swords. Beneath it all, the driving force is swift, cutting action. This knight is the urgent, razor-sharp need to cut through red tape and illusion. It's the emergency declaration itself, a clean, heroic strike intended to sever the chain of infection and bureaucratic delay. This card's double edge is its potential for ruinous haste, but here it's the essential, clarifying energy required to mobilize a sluggish system, cutting to the heart of what needs to be done right now. 8. Where the web turns, the Emperor. The dynamic is moving towards structure, authority, and control. The Emperor's arrival signals a shift from the reactive emergency of the Knight of Swords to the imposition of a long-term, rigid framework. This points to new protocols, stronger borders, and a more authoritative global command structure in the coming months. It's the building of the new structures that the fresh Saturn-Neptune cycle demands, promising stability, but also carrying the risk of heavy-handed, impersonal control that may clash with the DRC's deep need for compassionate, nuanced care. A word from the channel. Thank you so much for walking this timeline with me. Since this is a small channel trying to find its voice, every like, subscribe, and thoughtful comment genuinely helps us reach more people. I would love to hear your thoughts below or what you hope to see in the future. Thanks for watching.